piece of heaven farm. Today I'm out in my mini orchard, and this is about almost mid-February of 2022, and I'm going to prune my peach trees. And to prune your peach trees, what you want to do is that you want to be careful that you don't prune off all the last year's new growth here, because that's what will provide you peaches this year. I'm just going to maybe shorten some of them and maybe thin some of these branches out, so that way when they do put on fruit, the fruit will be bigger and juicier. If I just let all this produce fruit, I would have really small peaches. So let me get a little closer to it and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, all this growth from right here on is last year's growth that will produce this year's peaches. From here on down, this main stem is old growth. Although if you look closely, like right there, that will produce a peach. You'd almost think that it's created a spur, but peach trees don't create spurs. You mostly get your peaches on previous year's growth, like this here. And here's another example. Last year's new growth right there on will produce peaches. There's flower there, flower there, flower there, flower there, there, all the way up there. And what I like to do, some of these longer growths, I like to prune them maybe halfway down, and maybe do some thinning. Like right here, you got too many branches growing right together. Just prune one of them out. And by doing that, you'll get bigger peaches. If I were to let all this to bloom and produce fruit, I would have lots of peaches, but very small ones. I'd rather have half that amount and bigger, juicier peaches. And this peach tree here is called a July Alberta, hence the name that it'll produce the fruit in July, but due to my elevation, it won't produce fruit until August. And over here is another peach tree. I believe this is called bobcock. Not 100% positive, but you can see here's an example of last year's new growth. Started from there, grew all the way up there, produced all those side branches, and those will all produce fruit. But that's way up there. If you don't want to pick fruit above your head, you could prune this. You cut this down to right about here. It's probably where I would cut this one. See, there's a lot of tall growth on this one. I would shorten it down so I don't have to reach way above my head or have to get a ladder. And a lot of thinning. Now on this tree, it's got a bunch of suckers coming off the bottom. You go ahead and cut all those out. That would just rob water and nutrition from the main tree. Just cut all those out. And here's a branch here that's too tall. I want to get it down where it's more manageable for me when to pick peaches off of it. And you can see all the side branching here. What I like to do is kind of go right about here, and you still got plenty of side branching here that will give me fruit. Here's another example how I like to prune on my peach trees. See how I got this one here growing horizontally, and this one's more vertical. You could cut that vertical out to keep the branch growing horizontally. See if I can find another good example. Like here's another example. You got one going straight up, and here's growing more horizontal. So just go ahead and just cut them off right there. That prevents the tree from being so tall where you can't harvest your peaches. Keeps it more of a dwarf size, more manageable size to do any spraying if you have to, and harvesting your peach tree. Like this one here, I'd probably just go ahead and let's see, cut this one out. And there's my pear tree. And pear trees, they have spurs, so you can prune off all of last year's new growth. Like all this new growth that's grown straight up. And just go ahead and cut all that off. And you can see all the spurs. They'll all produce pears. The apple tree is the same way as a pear. It has apple spurs all over it where it'll produce the apples. Here's all last year's new growth. All this could be cut off. But if you like to keep this branch here where it's growing horizontally, you can. All this upright you cut off, and that'll keep your tree short where you get your apples. And when you cut these horizontal here, you want to make sure the bud is facing downward on this branch to keep it growing horizontally, like right there. Here's a nice horizontal branching right here. So I'll just cut off all this new growth that's growing vertically to keep my tree shorter. If I manage to get it cut, there we go. Now this here will grow horizontally, and it'll produce spurs along here for next year's apples. And I got my apple trees pruned down where it's more manageable to harvest the apples and to spray the tree if need be. And remember, apples have apple spurs, so you can prune off all the new growth. See, like that there will produce an apple. And then here I've got my peaches all pruned, shortened it to more manageable height, prune it in such a manner where it'll grow wide. and I pruned my pear tree. Alrighty, well thanks for stopping by at Little Piece of Heaven Farm and seeing how I take care of my orchard. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye.